Somebody tell me, what the hell is it nowadays, huh? Girls with skirts up to here and boys with hair down to there. Look at this guy.
I don't know why you fight it, Pop. The world's changing.
Listen, Shirley Temple. You don't tell me nothing about the world.
Oh, Shirley Temple.
The legendary co-creator and producer of Sanford & Son and All in the Family, the late, great Bud Yorkin. Today on Pop Goes the Culture. Hi, I'm David Levin, and welcome to another landmark episode of Pop Goes the Culture. And we are continuing my archival conversation with TV mogul Bud Yorkin, a legendary creator who passed away a few years ago. In today's segment, Bud Yorkin will tell us how he ended up partnering with Norman Lear, working with Tennessee Ernie Ford, getting into the movies, what it was like working with Frank Sinatra, and the creation of All in the Family.
The play was a big hit, and the movie became a big hit. It was a huge, huge one. And we had Tony Bill was the first thing he had ever done. You know, he just graduated Notre Dame, and he came in as a lead. We had Lee J. Cobb in it, and Frank. And
what was Frank like at that point?
Well, you know, we talked to him quite a bit, and I had a wonderful thing going with Frank in the sense that he doesn't like to rehearse, and you know, and he doesn't like a lot of takes, and he doesn't all that stuff. And I'd heard most of that. And he said to me when we finally agreed to do it after this period, he said, you know, Bud, the way I work is you stage the scene the way you want it. I come in, I sit down in a chair, I watch you, you run it, you play my role, you do the scene, boom, I come in, we off, we're done. That sounds good enough for me. So, first day, I'm a bit nervous with my first picture, and I got Frank Sinatra and Lee Cobb, and they happen to be in the first scene that we're going to do, happens to be one with them. So I'm really concerned. Here I'm rehearsing with Lee J. Cobb, with no Frank Sinatra around. We had read, so I mean, we were no strangers. So so I ran this thing like Frank wanted me to do. I ran his role, and he said, I just have a couple suggestions, if that's okay. And I said, sure, anyhow. So I would have a moment where they're talking to each other like that, and he would say, why don't I put my arm around him, and so that this is to be much more infinite. You would not be able to, if anybody was in the room, they wouldn't be able to hear the two of us. I said, well, we could try that. But I said, I'd like to do it my way first. And he said, well, you know, we don't like two. There's only one really right way. I knew what he was doing was my shot would be two setups, one this way, one that way. If he gets here, I'm dead. I got one master, and that's it. So he went around wanting to change about 4 or 5 different setups. He knew if I go ahead and cut that camera shot, cut that camera. He's done enough movies. He knew exactly. You don't want to wait around for relighting and redoing all that stuff. And finally, I said one time, we were at one, I said, you know, I really don't want to even play with that one because I think that one's perfect. He said, great. You think it's great? Great. He walks out, puts his hat on, gets in the car, and drives away. And now it's just, I say it's disaster. My first day, don't get 1 foot of film, not one foot of film shot, he's gone. And I said, oh God, there goes my career. First thing I do, first day, star walks out on me, and Paramount's already saying, Jesus, you know, the kid couldn't even get a first shot out of him. So that's a wrap, and we don't have a shot. Come in the next day, I'm in early, can't sleep the whole night, and one of his goons comes over later, you know, and Frank gets in, said, the boss wants to see you in the dressing room. I say, okay. And I walk in, he says, sit down, will you, Pally? I sit down. He said, listen, let me ask you a couple of questions. Did you know I was somewhat difficult when you asked me to be in your movie? Did you ever hear that? And I said, yeah, as a matter of fact, I have. And he said, did you ever hear that I don't like a lot of shots and a lot of taking retakes? You know, have you ever heard that? And I said, yeah, as a matter of fact, I heard that too. And he said, well, let me ask you, have you ever heard that when it comes 5 o'clock, he said, that's martini time. I don't give a damn if we're in the middle of a word or a scene. I say, 5, wrap, see you tomorrow. And you may want to have planned to finish that scene so you could go to another location. I don't care what your problem is. 5 o'clock is martini time. Have you heard that? And I said, I don't think I heard that one. So he said, well, if you had heard all those things, why didn't you get Gordon McRae to play the role? Right? Gordon Ray, as you know, is just a stiff singer, you know. And I said, yeah. And he made me laugh, and he said, come on, let's go, Pally. And we were friends from that point on. He let me off the hook. And that's why he let me off the hook.
This is why people started using 2 cameras on sets, right?
Yeah. Well, you couldn't afford to in those days, but...
Yeah, that's really funny. So let's sort of go to some of the early sitcoms and stuff that you did, and let's sort of bring me up to date to how All in the Family happened.
Well, All in the Family happened... I was in London shooting a picture, and Norman was here, and he read a thing in TV Guide about Death Do Us Part, which is what All in the Family was based on, an English sitcom that played only about 12 shows they ever did. And I was living there doing this picture, and so I watched it on the tube. I couldn't even understand it. It was so Cockney. I couldn't understand because it was the same dynamics. You had a very conservative. They were knocking the Queen, knocking the, you know, everything that's royalty about England. They were doing, and then he calls. We were talking on the phone. He said, "You know something? You know, it'd make a great great sitcom would be. Let's take that one. Have you seen? You've seen the show over in England and London?" I said, "Yeah." I said I couldn't even understand it. He said, "Well, you know, I think it'd make a great one. We got a conservative, we have a Democrat, a Republican. You know, we get all the conflict, and he said we can do." I said, "Geez, well, you know," he saw it very clear. I must confess, I didn't. But not enough when the guy's excited. He said, well, while you're over there, this gives me an opportunity. Let me take a crack at doing a script on it and see what you say. So he did. And when I read it, I said, oh, God, this is, you know, if we can do this, this is incredible. It's really, I said, this is really incredible. And he said, great, you know, let's see if we can do it. So we take it over to ABC, and they want to do a pilot right away, and we do a pilot right away. We got Carol O'Connor. We saw him in a movie, and he played the major in a, I can't think of the name of the picture. What are you doing the War Daddy? That's what it was. He played the major. And we said, God, this is a perfect guy for Archie. And at the time, with Rob Reiner, Rob and his partner, which was Jerry Miskin at that time, he and we were doing a special, writing the special. One of the things I did say to Norman when we were trying to cast, I said, geez, I've never had so many arguments with anybody as I do with Rob. I said, Rob has, boy, I mean, he should be on a debating team. And he came up with that. He said, well, geez, let's put him in on the family. And I said, well, geez, Rob is Jewish. He said, that's all right, we'll make him a dumb Polak. What's the difference? I said, I guess it doesn't bother you, it doesn't bother me. And that's how Rob got in. And, you know, we did the show. And then they tested the pilot, and it tested the lowest of any show ever in the history. That's where you press a button if you don't like it. And he said, and so ABC said, geez, it just doesn't work. And then we talked to them a bit longer, and they said, okay, why don't you recast it, and we'll go another pilot. And so we did the same script. We replaced and brought in Sally Struthers and Rob Reiner. And we always had Gene, and we always had Carol. And we put Rob in. He wasn't in the first one. We put in the second. And we did the second one, which we thought was great. Played in the audience, same as the first, big laughs and everything else. And I thought, sure they were in. And again, they tested it. Boom, down the thing. And so they said, you can have it back. We don't want it. So we called up United Artists at that time, David Pick, and we said, let's make a movie. We'll make a small movie out of this. We can expand it, and it'll be a funny movie. And they said, great, we'll make a low-budget, real low-budget film. And one day, I was going into CBS. I was in New York, and I was pitching another television show. And one of the vice presidents, one of the program manager who just programmed vice presidents, I guess you'd call him, left, was fired, and Bob Woods had come in to replace him. And he was walking by. Well, no, the way it worked, they told me that Bob Woods is running late. He's about an hour late. And if I was walking by his office, and I can't remember who it was, the VP at that time. But anyway, he was doing nothing with boxes around, waiting. He was done. And so I walked in, how you doing? And we were talking, and he said, what have you been doing? I told him about this show that had been turned down twice. He said, well, gee, I'd love to see it. So I said, great. I said, I have a print here in New York. And so the next morning I brought the print in. They took it down to master control and fed it up to him. And he started to laugh and scream, and I'm watching it. And Fred Silverman walks by, and he walks in the office, stands in and starts to look, well, he starts to, in the middle, and starts to laugh. He's, hold it. He said, let's put this thing back to the beginning. So they roll it back, and he sits there and watches. He said, this is the, God, I've never seen anything like this. This is the funniest show I've ever seen in my life. He said, got to show it to Bob Woods this afternoon. He said, can you come back to this? I said, yeah, sure. So we go back to Bob Woods. He has the same thing. He said, but geez, what's Bill Paley going to say when he sees that? That thing will never get into CBS. And Bob Woods, who was smart at that, said, yeah, but we're all country shows. We got, that's when they had all the, hillbilly shows that were on, and they needed something. So we did that, and then I called Norman. He said, oh, come on, geez, come on. We fooled around long enough with networks. And I said, I'm telling you, they're going to want to put it on. They want to put it on CBS. So he comes back, and there's big discussions about who's going to, what happens if we disagree with you can't say this or do that. And we said, well, we'll give some, and you're going to have to give some. And after a lot of talk, we decided on CBS, who would be the only contact we'd have, and so forth. And we put it on. And they gave us an order for three episodes, that was all. And they would pay for the rest, for the 13. They'd pay the cast for the next, and that would be it. And so we went on with 3 shows. And the funny part about that whole experience is that I'll never forget is the first night, opening night, they've got for mature audiences only, and they got added telephone operators, God knows what people are going to be complaining. And they learned a lot about America because they got more complaints from New York and LA, and mid-America accepted it. And all the places they thought, oh God, they're going to hate it when you're calling all those names that that you're doing. And it went very well there and more. But anyway, the first night, and we're on the phone about 2 hours before it goes on in New York, and they want to change the first one with the second one. Second show was was not one of our better shows. Third show was, but the second one we taped already, and we said, no, we can't change that. We knew the first one, we know it was great. Christ, we only spent 4 years on it to get it on the air, And we said, no, we're not going to do it. And I said, if you're going to do it, count us off. We're done. If you want to play one episode, go ahead and do it. We're not going to do it. So they gave in to us, and that's how the first show, we did play the pilot, the first show, thank goodness, And that was the start of it.
I remember the next day, the next week, the news exploded about this show over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah.
It exploded. The New York Times.
Yeah, they were the big
coverage.
That's what they started to compare it to Pinky, which was the first racial picture that MGM did. They're trying to compare this with digging into what's happening, and that publicity just shot us up. And We didn't do great ratings because they put us after Hee Haw, which had about a 5 rating, and there we were after them. But that summer, it went to number 1. They reran the 13. We only did 13 shows the first year, and it was number 1 right straight through the summer, and that's really what started it all.
What kind of reactions did you get from within the industry, from other people that you?
Oh, everybody was behind us because we opened up. It opened up a great field for them. They can say that, and they can call, if he can come in and say, he's and we show what an idiot this man is for saying that and calling him that, and they deal with that problem. God, that's great. This is what television should finally do. And I think that the greatness of that show was that we'd get a ton of mail and they'd say, my father looked in the mirror and saw Archie Bunker. I just want to thank you. He's changed a great deal. And when we had one time they did the one about Change of Life, and a woman was going through menopause, and I think it was like the next day or so, we got so many like almost wires saying that the first time my father understood what my mother had gone through, that she wasn't through for life, and all the things that we dealt with. So those kind of things, it opened up for the rest of them. See, my only problem with comedy today, and I respect it. I don't put down television because television, I wouldn't be living here if I didn't have television. But most of the jokes that they're getting on a lot of shows, not all, because there's I don't want to bundle them in because I can give you shows that I think are really great. But a lot of them are just taking pure double entendre lines and making them funny, and that's the cheapest way to get a laugh. And it's not the freshest way, and that's what I thought the Mary Tyler Moore show was doing at that time, and the Bob Newhart show was doing at that time. We were all trying to say something, do something that was worthwhile, and we even on Sanford, we really was the first time that we could in a black, because it was the first black show that ever went on that was successful, and we could deal with the problem of them Afro-American, what they're going through too, from their point of view.
Okay, we're out of time for now. Be back for part 4 when we'll continue talking about All in the Family, Sanford and Son, and what happened when Red Fox threatened to quit. It's a look inside the mind of a brilliant comedian and a brilliant producer. Trust me, you want to be here for that. For now, I'm David Levin. Thanks for watching.